it's time to dive into what RATH is really doing on here, on Ocean Turtle, with what I consider to be one of the best scenes in the series so far. Welcome everyone, and this is Alicization Explained by Gamerturk, featuring episode 6, Alicization Keikaku. As usual, you can find the timestamps in the pinned comment to skip certain bits that you are not interested in, as I'll be comparing the entire episode to the light novels and inform you of things that the anime adaptation glossed over. To be frank, this episode has been my favorite episode so far in this series. We had minor cuts here and there, and one major change which I'll get to later down in this video that makes absolutely no sense. But as I said, overall this has been my favorite episode so far due to the sheer variety of emotions being conveyed as accurately as possible. I will be teasing future episodes as well without any spoilers at the end of the video, so if you're interested in that, make sure to stick to the end, as the next episode will be jumping back into Underworld. And before we begin, all my previous episodes have been claimed by Kadokawa, the owner of the Art Online IP. I'm currently fighting the claims, but due to the possibility of a system abuse, I can't fight all 5 at the same time. And while you can watch episodes 1, 4 and 5 freely, but completely demonetized due to the dispute process, which means I'll be tanking all the lost revenue myself, episode 2 and 3 are currently sadly blocked worldwide. I'm looking to get these resolved as quickly as possible, but in the time being I do ask for your support, and the easiest and free way of doing it is obviously hitting that like button and subscribing, but you can also get the Alicization light novels for yourself via my Amazon affiliate links in the description if you are interested, and thus grab yourself the amazing books and support me at the same time at no additional cost, of course. Patreon is something, it's a great way as well, but I don't want to push that option too much. I imagine those who really want to support my channel already are doing so there. But without further ado, episode 6, Alicization Project, starts exactly where we left off, with Asuna demanding to know where Kirito is. This scene, with all the glint effects on Kikuoka's glasses, makes him look like a sinister villain, so let's get that out of the way. No, in all seriousness, he's not a villain. While you still shouldn't trust him in general, as he is quite a secretive gentleman, he is not really a person you should be wanting to punch in the face. While he indeed does need Kirito for his project, and while he's not telling Asuna and Rinko everything he has to say, he still does care about Kirito's health, as he mentions in the dialogue. But let's go back to the topic at hand. As Higa says at the beginning, they both knew Kirito would be more or less leak something about the project to someone. After all, they, or rather Kikuoka Seijirou, had spent quite a lot of time with them in the past in various occasions. But they were not ready for the events that transpired before them in the past few days, as well as what would transpire in the future. A minor but key detail when Kikuoka talks about the purpose of the Project Alicization is the Tower of the Axiom Church. I talked about this before back in episode 2, when A1 paid attention to the details of the tower more than they have here. There are 3 key features that you should pay attention to on the top of Axiom Church Tower, one of which is missing from this shot, much like the opening. From here you can see an area that is supported by pillars. That is an open area and is called the Morning Star Lookout. It is found on the 95th floor of the Axiom Church Tower, and the ledge you see right below is somewhere between the 80th and the 95th floor. The missing key detail in this picture, however, is the stone-like statues that should be found between this ledge and the Morning Star Lookout above. And in fact, I'll show you a picture from episode 2's final scene here, and you can clearly see the statues right there. It may be that the statues only appear at certain times, but such a thing was never mentioned in the novels, so I will not be taking that as a fact. Why are all these details important? I'm not gonna tell you that much. Just keep these visual cues in your mind until the time comes, and when it does, you will have a smile on your face because you were here. But back to RATH, Kikuoka explains what he had hinted at in the post-credit scene of Ordinal Scale movie when he was talking to Professor Tetsuhiro Shigemura. He had seen the limits of top-down AI and that he believed in a different future. And that future was a bottom-up AI, essentially a consciousness that is nurtured much like an actual human being, not working on a pre-written program or algorithm, but rather lives and learns through experience. And yes, I know the title card still says beginning. I'm hoping it will change next week when we go back to Underworld. This is essentially a kind of a part 2 of the last week's episode, so it was understandable that the title card is still the same as last week. But after the opening, we see central capital Centauria on the large display, and you see some numbers fluctuating on the left. That is the Floodlight Acceleration multiplier that speeds up the progress of the virtual world you see. If you remember, in episode 1 Kirito had explained this feature, and in episode 5 Explained I talked about how this affects RATH approaching to their world. As you can see on the screen, the acceleration multiplier is fluctuating between 900 and 1000. As to why it is fluctuating instead of, remaining at a stable rate, you can think of it like your frame rate on your PC or console. When the calculations become too intense on your hardware, you will be losing 1 or 2 frames here and there, and if you're not doing anything significant, you will have a naturally higher and stable frame rate. It's essentially the same thing here, as there are small fluctuations to the acceleration multiplier depending on the resources it takes, which is quite nice attention to the detail here. In this scene, however, we see Higa name drop Professor Shigemura in a minor way that he helped creating this bottom-up approach, but I still do believe we may get more references to him in a more major manner later down the line. There are a lot of exposition here, how the AI system works, how it was created, how it was being stored on this medium they call a light cube, which brings us to my favorite scene in this episode and probably the series. A scene that is so eerily unnerving that it makes you think, is this even ethical? Are these the good guys or the bad guys? It really showcases the grey ethical area when it comes to a scientific breakthrough, and it couldn't have been adapted more perfectly. It's one of those scenes that gives you goosebumps. The voice acting, tense and disgusted faces of Rinko and Asuna, the visualization of Higa's copy, the 8G-001, and eventually the consciousness collapsing under the thought of being a copy. Copy or not, the consciousness speaking from the screen was an intelligent being, not being able to come to terms with the fact that he was just a copy before dying out under the thought. In the novels, it took 4 minutes and 27 seconds until 8G001 collapsed. In the anime, however, it took only 1 minute and 8 seconds according to the real Higa. It's quite natural, it's an adaptation, not harping on it. And in fact, 8G001 starts his speech at 5 minutes 33 seconds mark of this episode and disappears at 6 minutes and 41 seconds, exactly 1 minute and 8 seconds, so kudos for the attention to detail here. Most series you'll see won't even care about such precision, so well done. Kikuoka and Higa explain further of their research how they copied floodlights of babies to have empty templates and how they put them into the simulation. On my opening explained video, many people suggested that the village we see here was Rulid, and I argued otherwise. In the end, here I was also proven correct, as we get to see the foundation of the small village, Centauria, way before it earned the title of central capital, with the 4 originators visible on your screen, eventually turning into an entire community as they raised the blank floodlights. If you're interested in more details, you can click on the icon on the top right for my opening explained video where I talked about this specific scene in the opening, but the little town created by 4 RATH staff would eventually turn into a huge city with 20,000 citizens. Central capital Centauria. But there was one tiny problem, a problem that caused the citizens to be a little too perfect, a perfectly obedient community who couldn't break the absolute rules of the world, the taboo index created by an emerging religion-like entity, the Axiom Church. But the implication of Kikuoka's disappointment made their objective very clear to Asuna. This was a military project to create AIs capable of fighting the wars humans did not want to. This was a military farm to create obedient soldiers, but this scene with Higa provides a much needed perspective here. While Underworld is it's an obedient soldier consciousness farm, Higa's reasoning was to ensure that real people would never have to die in wars like his friend did, but that reasoning never changed the fact that the souls grown in Underworld were also real, regardless if the consciousness was stored on a biological medium like our brains or a digital medium like the light cube. And that is the unsolvable problem, the ethical gray area. Sure, most of you don't probably watch Sword Art Online for the various gray areas it explores, but personally these are the things I find fascinating to think about, despite never managing to come up with an answer. But here, a key detail about the limits of a memory, whether the light cube or our biological brain, was omitted from the anime, which is kind of an important plot point. You know, similar to a USB drive that can hold up to 32 gigabytes of data, let's say, our brain is also not a limitless storage medium, and neither is a light cube storing the artificial floodlight data. In fact, Asuna was quite furious towards Kikuoka Seijirou after the revelation that Kirito had spent over 10 years in Underworld due to Kikuoka essentially filling the capacity of his memory, but Kikuoka had comforted her, claiming that this was just a theory, and according to said theory, an average human brain would have enough storage for about 150 years at its limit. But we get to see why Kikuoka needed Kirito so much and how he had affected Alice, eventually causing her to break the unbreakable taboo index. And we also get the problem with this episode and this scene. This right here, the Alo scene, is an anime original scene, so let me break down the situation so you understand the severity of this ludicrous scene that didn't exist in the light novels. Asuna is currently on a top secret military facility. She had just experienced a top secret military project that even the government does not have the full knowledge of, because Kikuoka needed the help of Rinko, and to convince her, he needed to provide some information regarding the project, hence why Asuna heard about all of these. In the novels, Asuna did not even have any contact with outside world, let alone, military Wi-Fi that may cause her to share the secrets with the outside world. But here, the military literally provided her a luxury room, Wi-Fi access, and let her use an M-sphere that connects to various networks on public domain, and Alo as well, an MMORPG that keeps logs of all written and voice chats, similar to your PlayStation 4, where you can meet your school friends and explain this top secret military project to all of them in an environment that keeps logs of their conversations. Did I mention that? Owned by a private company. What the hell, A1? Including Lisbeth and Shilika while ignoring Asuna's personal values in the previous episode just to shoehorn them in was something, yeah, but it was in the end minor. This scene right here is outright stupid, and this scene did not have a place here, especially not in this otherwise perfect episode. You know what the worst part is? It's incredibly stupid, even from a fan perspective, so now all we're left is a scene that people are gonna point out. Well, Asuna shared the entire military secrets on a domain that is accessible by outside people, and military allowed her to, and well, all I can say is, even with all the passion and care I have for this franchise is, yep, that happened and it was stupid. As I say every single time, if forcefully trying to shoehorn characters into your story comes at the expense of your story's integrity, then you should absolutely 100% throw that decision off of the window and never look back. This was one of the most egregious decisions ever made in the entire Sword Art Online anime history, and for clarity, the fact that this scene is bad is not my opinion. As I explained, with all the military precautions and the things that happened in the light novels instead of this mess, where they ensured their secrets never got out, is the proof that this is objectively a bad scene. And I know there's gonna be that one person in the comments saying, oh, but Gamerturk, no! No buts. This is the one time I'm gonna be absolutely clear. This scene is completely stupid and does not rely on any sense of logic whatsoever, and that is the last thing I'm gonna say about this scene, hoping that they'll replace it with a full-on in RATH explanation scene instead, like the first half of the episode. Anyhow, the scene also features some minor explanations, one of those I talked about in the last week's Explained. Due to the acceleration multiplier being so high, they were a bit too late to find Alice before she was apprehended and quote-unquote corrupted by the Axiom Church, and that is as far as we're gonna talk about Alice for a while. As Asuna returns to Ocean Turtle, she goes to see Kirito. Rinko accompanies her, and we meet Nurse Aki, the same kind-hearted nurse that was tasked with keeping Kirito safe during the death gun incident back in Phantom Bullet. The full title and the name of the nurse who graduated from Tokyo Self-Defense Force Higher School of Nursing is Sergeant First Class Aki Natsuki. As Aki promises that Kirito would be okay, with Asuna's hand on the observation window, ordinal scale ring clearly visible, Rinko is once again filled with guilt as she heard the mention of Sword Art Online, and we move on to the next scene. I hinted at this in episode 5 Explained, the event that she had the chance to end, but a chance she never took. The bomb in her chest, Kayaba had put it there not to threaten her, but to ensure authorities would never blame her for what happened. It was Kayaba's last present, the only present he ever gave to Rinko, so that she could live a normal life after the incident. I love these scenes and I absolutely have nothing to add. They are all beautiful, both Rinko's side of the story and Asuna's side of the story. There's nothing I can add even if I wanted to. We see Rinko's guilt and Asuna's perspective on the days she lived back there, something she talked about a long time ago on floor 22 back in Aincrad, with the same soundtrack piece accompanying her words. A tender feeling. And of course, the vision of Kayaba Akihiko in Rinko's eyes early in the morning, causing her to run out of her room in realization of what she just saw. But the next episode is titled Swordcraft Academy, in Yempress official English translation terms that is. We can't be certain, but according to the title Crunchyroll provided, we may be having an entire chapter getting cut from the adaptation. No need to raise your pitchforks just yet, since it can be adapted in a manner to be faithful, or maybe the title translation is just wrong, but the current episode title provided by Crunchyroll is still a huge red flag for the light novel readers. But obviously next episode we're heading back to Underworld with Kirito and Yujiro as they continue their journey to south. On their path to central capital Centauria stands another northern town called Zakaria, and that is their first goalpost, to earn the right to become swordsmen. If the chapter I mentioned does not get cut, we will get to see the understanding of what a sword skill is from the side of an underworldian, how certain people in high positions utilize their power in this perfectly balanced world, and questions regarding the taboo index, as well as an introduction to a mysterious observer. But if the chapter is indeed cut, what awaits us next week is brand new characters, both enemies and allies. Should the chapter indeed gets cut, I won't cover it in the course of my weekly explain series. I'll just do an entirely separate video to cover the cut content, because it's kind of, a substantial amount of content there. But if you made it this far into the video and have no questions you want to ask me, please do comment Project Alicization down below so I know you made it this far. Since that one person was not pleased that the Japanese term was only about 37% cooler, this week you can be 43% cooler if you comment Alicization Keikaku, but remember, you're disqualified if you don't add a translator's note to your comment clarifying what Keikaku means in English. In the wake of every single Alicization episode being demonetized by Kadokawa currently, I do hope you guys truly enjoyed this episode and the ones before. There are multiple ways to support my channel, but as I always say, commenting, liking and sharing is the best way of supporting my channel, as the main goal of these videos is to inform you guys first and foremost, and I hope you appreciate those intentions. And at the end of the video, let me address something. Some people are starting to get disgruntled that I've been jabbing at Foxen for the past few weeks, and well, I'm not in a position to apologize. I don't make jokes to steal views from him, I'm criticizing him for sharing misinformation. While he is passionate for the franchise in a positive light, that still doesn't change the fact that he lacks the integrity to inform his audience properly. And if I'm not gonna call that out, then I already failed as the person who tries his best to inform people about Sword Art Online, so if you don't like the way I'm handling it, please do unsubscribe. But I'll be continuing to provide my best on this ideal to inform everyone as accurately as possible about this series that means so much to me. With that, thank you very much for watching, and thank you to my dear patrons as well. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.